This episode of Out of Spec Reviews is brought to you by Magna. More on that later. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video, and welcome to the 2022 Volkswagen Golf R. I have news. I've ordered one of these. I want to talk about why I've ordered it, how it fits into my lifestyle, what I'll be using it for, the content you can expect to come, how the deal went through, and then of course, we're going to take it for a drive on some amazing roads up here in northern Colorado, up in the mountains. It's a perfect day for it, nice and chilly, turbo weather. This one has the manual transmission, the Magna rear differential with drift mode. It's just going to be awesome. Let's take it for a drive and talk about why I've ordered a 2022 Mark 8 Volkswagen Golf R. This is the new Golf R, and it's not the first video that I've made on this car. We actually had a really cool opportunity where Volkswagen invited Out of Spec down to North Carolina to be one of the first people in the US to drive one of these, and that's where I fell in love with the car, in the mountains of North Carolina. You guys know we used to live in the good old NC, and we would be out in the mountains all the time ripping around, and this was like the perfect size and just so much more engaging than previous Golf Rs. There's a beautiful river flowing beside right over here, and that means a good road following this river. And I've brought the Golf up here because this is where, you know, sort of similar location where I fell in love with it, in the mountains on twisty roads. And I have to say, I've driven the Mark 7 and the Mark 6 as well, and never had that same experience. This car is truly transformative from a drivetrain standpoint, using that all-wheel drive system with the new Magna rear differential. I keep saying Magna diff because that's who sponsors us. So the people that basically help bring these videos to you make this car so exciting, and so I just love that they were able to make that work. It's the same rear diff that's in the RS3 sedan and hatch. Unfortunately, we don't get the RS3 hatch in the US. I'd probably be buying one of those instead. Anyway, we have the EA 888 under the hood, just about 300 horsepower. The manual transmission makes a little bit less power than the dual clutch, and I think the reason is it's a pretty weak clutch, just based off of meeting people in the forums and everything. It seems like that was the weak point of the Mark 7 manual, and I believe it's the exact same transmission and clutch. Now, I'm generally pretty easy on clutches. You know, even though I drive the cars hard, I don't really launch them. I'm, you know, pretty good with gear shifting. Like, I'm not too worried about it, but it does make me a little bit concerned if I try to start tuning this thing, which is kind of what I'm thinking about doing. By the way, the specification that I've ordered is identical to this one right here. So it's a blue with black interior Golf R manual. There's only two options you can choose in the US on this car. It would be the exterior color. All of them have the same interior. And I've gone for blue just because I think it looks great on camera. I think if I was gonna keep this thing long term, maybe I would go for white. I'm not sure. I just haven't owned a blue car in a really long time. And I was like, well, that's the launch color for this thing. We gotta get the blue. So ordered a blue manual, and that's the second option. It's a little bit more expensive for a DSG, like 600 bucks, which I wasn't even interested. I wouldn't even buy it if it didn't have a manual transmission. And so I'm so happy Volkswagen has kept the manual in the US alive with the GTI and the Golf R. And well, you know, being up here in Colorado with snow and twisty roads and this awesome rear diff, I had to go for the Golf R. Not really for the power, but for the drivetrain and the big brakes and everything else that comes along with it. Love the suspension as well. So let's jump in, talk about sort of the order, the process, and have some fun on these great driving roads. You join me back at the office with these incredible views to thank Magna. Now, Magna is a technology company that produces not only parts for cars, but also technological solutions from manufacturing and design and engineering. They cover so many parts of the automotive sector, and I bet you've interacted with a Magna product in your life before. Magna actually is very near and dear to my heart because their partnership, Magna Steyr in Austria, Austria produced my first car, a Mini Countryman, and it was built right there in Graz. A lot of you are also familiar, Magna's going to be producing the Fisker Ocean in their Magna Steyr factory, and they also build G-Wagons, and nothing gets tougher than a G. So really excited about our partnership with Magna, of course. They are also hiring for engineers, so we know a lot of you guys are super interested in technology and automotive. I'll leave a link below so you can learn more about possible opportunities at Magna, but of course we want to thank them for sponsoring today's video and being such a huge supporter of Out of Spec. Truly, they are pushing mobility forwards responsibly and sustainably. All right, so start button down here. Love the interior of this, except for all this black piano trim. Now, last time I drove this car, I literally only had 20 minutes with it, and I was just like bombing, just pop, 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 and loved it. So it starts up in sport mode. We're going to go through all the different drive modes today. We'll save comfort for later on the highway, but I think that's pretty interesting. So let's just pull away and key up settings. Everything's up to temperature, of course, because I just drove it up here. And you know, the thing with the Golf R for me is I'm not buying this as like the performance weekend shredder. To me, this is going to be a daily driver. You know, we're actually selling our Tesla Model 3, or at least I think we are. I don't know what's going to happen there. Some, like one of these Carvana companies, driveway.com, offered us some good money for it, and that's in process. But you never know, something might come up. Anyway, this is regardless. I ordered this before I thought I was even going to sell the Model 3. And it's just beautiful here in the canyons, isn't it? And I was like, well, I just want one of these. I don't know why. You know, look, I love electric cars. We've been doing EV stuff, and I'm not sure how much I'm actually going to drive this car, but to have the chance to own one of the last manual hatchbacks with a, you know, great all-wheel drive system, I just had to take the opportunity. And I have to say a big thanks to some friends at Volkswagen who aren't giving us the car or giving us a car at a discount, but what they were able to do was to help us source a car that was in the production process and assign it to a dealer for us to purchase it at sticker. So I know they're really hard to get, and sometimes making YouTube videos has its perks, and I have to say I don't think, you know, this is unethical. We're paying full price for the car. They just said, hey, we found one available and we're sending it to this dealer. And I was like, great. Oh my goodness, this road. Forgive me while I have way too much fun in this car. Not even in any of the race modes. Brakes, really good. Okay, can't help myself. That's what this car does to me. It brings out my inner 15-year-old, just got my license, driving like a maniac, and I love that. Previous Golfs, and I mentioned this when I did the review as well, were a little bit too sterile for me. I actually think the Mark 7 looks better than the Mark 8. I know maybe that's a controversial opinion. I'm just not loving the front end. The back of this looks good though. I'm definitely going to do some upgrades, so we'll talk about that too. But they never had the real driving enthusiasm that I wanted. I was always a Mini guy with the front wheel drive stuff, and I was like, okay, I had a John Cooper Works GP. I love hot hatches, and that was just as hardcore as it could get, and Volkswagen never really had anything on that level, and the Golf R was always the more grown-up choice, you know, for some of the older guys that, you know, just wanted something kind of fun, but wanted to blend in and not cause too much of a scene. And so that is what this car is, except with the touch of a couple buttons, you can bring out this other character. So I can hit race mode, for example, and race mode's pretty crazy. Listen to that rev limiter, bop, bop, bop. And it's pretty stiff too. So here we are on some dusty roads, but like you'll get a feel for just how crazy stiff this thing is. It's got full adaptive damper throughout. And so that's pretty neat. But on our roads in Colorado, this car has a special mode. It's called Nürburgring mode. And it is just perfect for a back road blast. I don't like some of the software stuff where it always switches gauges, but I've got everything programmed the way I like it. You know, I really spent the time to get it programmed in the way I like it. And I'll talk about that too. And in Nürburgring mode, it backs off the suspension, but the exhaust is still wide open. So we have smooth suspension, but everything else kind of in racing mode. And that's exactly what I want for these roads around here, where you can put the speed on, but you need compliance to soak up the bumps. No auto rev matching in this car. You got to do it yourself, which I love, so I can heel toe down into corners under hard brakes, and it just lets me have the fun I want to have in a car. And it's got great power, and it's got great power right to the limiter. You know, while this car might on paper make a little bit less power than the dual clutch, I haven't driven it, I'd be curious if that has the same power profile as this, the same torque profile, because this just pulls to redline. It encourages you to stay in it and to rev it all the way out. It's just awesome, and you can hustle it so hard. So anyway, we're coming up to a little neighborhood, so I'll just take it a little bit easier through here. Back to the stuff about practically why am I buying it. I think that just answers the question. I can bring it up here on a weekend and just, well, actually I would do it probably on like a Wednesday morning at 5 a.m. And that's what I want out of a car, right? Is just to freaking hammer it, have fun, but then also have this dual personality and sort of a daily hatchback where it has heated rear seats. It has a comfort mode that turns off all the noise, which I would turn off the noise anyway. I don't like this fake sound thing. And so it just seems to work pretty well with our life. Now, I don't know if this is going to be my daily driver, because I really do feel strongly about driving an electric car every day. And, you know, I think I'm going to get another, well, we have a couple electric cars coming. We have a Rivian, we have a Porsche Taycan coming, both of which would make great electric daily drivers. So this doesn't really fit into that picture. And the Model 3, I think, is going to go. So this is a little bit different. The way I justified buying this car is to use as a camera vehicle for our videos. You know, we have Timon and Jordan who both want to make a little bit better looking videos and to do more rolling shots and things like that. And we've been using the smart car for this, but more recently we've been starting to travel more with cars and film these travel series just outside of like an out-of-spec motoring road trip. And so I was like, okay, well, if we're going to be filming electric car road trips and shoots all over the country and things like this, where we have big distances to cover our gear, where we need to mount a whole bunch of stuff to the car, and it needs to be quick enough to like keep up, but then also fill my like hatchback desire. This was really the only option that fit the bill. And so we can get a roof rack with a camera arm on it if we wanted to increase our production quality, which we're still kind of playing around with from time to time, and that will be a many-year process. You guys know, our production quality isn't so high, but what we do is we do have a lot of volume of videos across the network. And so once we get comfortable with the volume and full transparency, then we can kind of crank up on the production output. So let me just turn air conditioning off. We don't need it. I was just thinking about that. So yeah, that's why I bought this car. That's how it fits into our lifestyle, where it's going to be, why is that guy going like 3 miles an hour? That's wild. It's going to take you forever to get there, buddy. It's just going to be sort of a teen car. Everyone can get in and use it. It's going to be a manual, love manual transmissions, and it's just owning a piece of history. I don't expect us to own it for years and years. I think we're going to have one for 6 months to a year, something like that. We're just really lucky to have gotten one, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity. And I've seen these for sale for like $10,000, $15,000 over sticker, and so I'm really happy that we're getting ours at MSRP. In terms of modifications, there's some things I already know I want to do to it. And so the first is opening up this exhaust. And you can hear some pops out the rear, maybe. It's not rowdy enough for me. Like, we got this hatchback, let's make it freaking rowdy. Traction control keeps coming in. I can go in here, ESC, and just turn it off. And I like that I can have a shortcut to it or have it on the menu, so that's pretty sweet. Nice heel toe in. I like that you got to do it manually. It feels good. Power out using that Magna rear diff, standing on the brakes, full brakes into second, get it in full power. Look at that, nice little angles. Rear end's helping get the power down. It just does all the right things. Everything I want it to do, it does. And so I'm just, so in love with this car. Now let's talk about things I don't like. And things I don't like are not the steering wheel buttons, which everyone else seems to dislike. It's really the visuals of this instrument binnacle. I just don't like all this piano black, and it just looks like they should have put bigger screens in everything. So that's a little bit annoying. I much prefer the ID4 screen layout to this. What else don't I like? I don't like that every time I change modes, it tries to put me into the ugliest view possible, which is this. No, not the map view. Not this one. Gosh, I don't even know. There's so many different views. They're all ugly except for one. It tries to put me in this like race view that makes the tack tiny and at the top, and I hate that. And so that's about it. I've never actually launched it, and nor will I ever launch mine because I care about my stuff, even though I drive it hard. So this one's not mine, and so I think we should just launch it one time just so I never have to do it to my own car. What I expect is going to happen is I'll probably launch it at 4,000 RPM. It's going to bog, stutter, boost lag at about 8,500 feet, and then it'll go, and the 1-2 ratio is actually pretty far apart. So that's what I expect to happen. So 4,000 RPM, here we go. Nah, didn't like that. It says travel assist unavailable, car freaked out, won't ever do it again, but had to do it once. Still full throttle. It's capable. Yes, it does the thing. And I like how short the ratios are. You're bum, bum, bum. And so that's really fun, for sure. Love this engine, EA888. I don't mind that it's actually detuned a little bit from the manual. Oh, the direction change is awesome. Steering, not so great. Steering's vague. Whoa, fifth. Makes you drive like an idiot. Steering's not so great. That's, I guess, my only other complaint about the car is I wish it was a little bit sharper on center. Total steering ratio, though, is pretty tight. Just hammers and hammers and hammers, and it loves it. And the engine is sort of like the best iteration of the EA888. Now, I've never fallen in love with this engine before. The EA888s have always been a bit, I don't know, generic, not that engaging. But then recently, my mom just got a new Macan with this engine. I drove it and I was like, wow, that's like way better than the old versions. And that only makes 260 horsepower. And here it makes no difference, 300 and I think just over 300 pound-feet of torque. I don't actually remember offhand. I think it's 295. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's plenty. But I would still tune it to get more power out of it. Stuff it into a corner, a little bit of throttle to get that Magna diff to help. That's the one thing with this active diff is you have to use throttle to help rotate the car. And I love Nürburgring mode because it's not artificial feeling. Like drift mode's artificial, and I haven't had it on track, and it's not worth doing on the street. But definitely, like with Nürburgring mode, it just maxes out that outside. I don't know if you can see this gauge. You probably can't from your angle, but it shows me where the power is going. I don't need to look. I can feel where it's going, and it's awesome. It can only send 50% of the power to the rear, and of that 50%, it can go 100% to either wheel. So that's how that works. My hands are sufficiently warm. I no longer need steering wheel heating. So, I forgot what we were talking about. Oh yeah, the EA888s. Yeah, so much better now. Like, what happened? They just like totally tuned the heck out of these things, and now they sound good. They are free revving, and they just like to be pounded. Volvo's driving down the middle of the road. Not sure why. Yeah, really loving this thing, and loving it at night too. There's beautiful ambient lighting. The Harman Kardon sound system is good, except I think it could use a little bit more bass, but this is the system that should be available in the ID4 in my opinion. It has air-conditioned seats, or yeah, I mean, I think they are actually air-conditioned because they do get pretty cold and really nice. The seats themselves fit me perfectly. They're not too aggressive, and basically what I'm coming down to is like this is the perfect sort of sport daily driver-ish just vehicle to have around. Like, oh, we got to bring the dogs somewhere, and you know, just want to throw them in the car. Well, just throw them in the Golf and go. It's just a Volkswagen Golf. That's the best part about it. No one knows it's anything fancy. It's so incredibly priced at about $45,000. I don't actually know what mine is. This is 43 something. I'm pretty sure mine's a little bit more money, like 44. I don't know what's going on there, but anyway, it's like a really good value, and you just can't beat it in my book. It's like something you just gotta own, and it's I don't think gonna lose its value at all. That's the way I'm looking at it. It's like this is a zero risk opportunity to buy a car that's really special, kind of hard to get. I'm super lucky to have the opportunity, and then to sort of give it a nice break-in period, you know, take care of the car, change the oil, even though they don't recommend doing that. Like, you don't have to do it. I always do break-in oil changes on combustion cars because we drive them hard. And then just like drive it hard and have fun with it. You know, once it comes up to temperature, and then just beat the crap out of it up here and use it as intended. You know, it's really a capable vehicle. You guys know we use our vehicles to the limit. First modifications have to be an exhaust for sure. Exhaust and possibly a tune, although I kind of am like, this EA888 is like the highest power version I think in the Volkswagen group. Like, how much more is left in there safely? I'm not so sure about that, to be honest. And so I guess no one's cracked the ECU yet. They're putting on these like tack-on situations, which not something I would do to my car. I would do a full dyno ECU tune if I did it. And I'm just so pleased with it, and I think it's going to fit into the lineup nicely, because everyone's going to want to just drive it around, take it to lunch, do stuff, and then, you know, it's really going to be a useful tool when we're out on shoots where we don't have to charge this car along with the cars we're trying to film. This can just go and do whatever it needs to do, and it's pretty efficient at 28 mpg on the highway, or 29 mpg on the highway in our test. And yeah, I mean, nothing more I could want right here. I think we should do just a braking limit test. By the way, we're, I believe, on the Bridgestone summer tires. I would put on PS4S's on mine, but let's see. So over the crest, and there's definitely no one behind us because we just kind of hammered it. So 3, 2, 1 on the downhill. That car coming. Just make sure we're clear. So cruising, and panic stop. 3, 2, 1. Oh, ho, ho. I feel like my eyeballs just got ripped out of my face. I mean, just like incredible stopping power, great brake pedal feel, good ABS through the pedal as well. And the brakes hold up to abuse. I mean, I'm not saying I haven't gotten them hot, but I'm saying like you really got to rip this thing to get them to that point. And I love how many times you have to shift, because it's such a short box. I don't like how short 6th gear is. I wish it had a taller final ratio, because at about 80 miles an hour, you're at like 3,200 RPM, and it's just winding away. So I think that's pretty interesting. Heads-up display, or head-up display as you always correct me. It just makes me happy. It's a feel-good car. It's premium. It's compact. It's not exuberant. It's the right image. You can roll up to someplace nice in a Golf, or you could be at the track, or you could be, you know, up a dirt road and no one's going to question you. It's just kind of a classless vehicle. And again, I think it's a zero risk buy. I think we're going to sell it for every penny we paid for it, or as near as makes no difference, as someone once said. Love how soft it is in Nürburgring mode. Let's just knock it into full race. There we go, did that on the wheel. Yeah, definitely controlling body motions on this smooth surface a little bit better in full race. Yeah, it even gets into corners a little bit better, and big power on the exit. And it sounds smooth. Like, I'm not usually a guy to like rev engines out all the way. Like, I just think that's a little bit mechanically abusive. But it sounds happy up here, doesn't it? Listen. Right to the limiter with a pop out the back. I mean, it seems to not care. But again, that's not really my style. I like a mid-range downshift whale on it, and then grab the next gear. Great section of road through here. And the brakes are just right there. They're so good. Maybe I'll do pads, fluid lines if I want to get crazy with it. But anyway, there you go. Love the car. Can't wait to get mine. It's about 7 weeks away. I think it's on a boat right now. It should have been arriving to the US. I got to go to Chicago to get it. I wanted to buy it here locally, but it just worked out where that was the easiest dealer for Volkswagen to send the car to, I guess, for some reason. You guys know we don't accept sponsorships or anything like that from automakers, so I really appreciate you all watching, and that's how we're able to get cool cars like this, is because of your viewership. And so can't wait to show you everything we're going to do with our Golf. Let's jump on the highway really quick and you know, talk about the driver assistance systems, because that's a really special key component, that it's a manual and with adaptive cruise. For my airport runs, it's going to be awesome. And it has travel assist, lane centering. So let's go do that, and yeah, that'll be a video. You joined me on a very noisy highway just for a little brief stint after a fun blast in the hills, where I wanted to talk about the driver assistance. You see, this is one of the very few cars in existence with a manual transmission, adaptive cruise control, and lane centering. And so it uses the same travel assist that we've known from the ID4, but what's interesting is it lets you shift gears. For example, I'm in 6th, I can rev match down to 5th, and it just takes right over. I mean, you don't have to rev match, you can let the clutch dip down and pull the engine up, I assume. So there we go, 4th, and now we're back in. It just seems to take a little bit longer. Upshift, clutch in, and then it applies power as soon as I let off. So that's really neat. I've actually done not necessarily stop and go, but like down to about 5 miles an hour at idle, and then I think the car would just stall it out. But you come down to idle, you can clutch in. As soon as you start moving, you get the thing going, and then you just shift up through the box, which is pretty awesome. But it does good fuel economy. We have a whole video on the fuel economy of this car. We did about 29 mpg at 70 in conditions like this. Massive wind. I mean, more wind than I think I've ever seen before. It's pretty insane. Trucks were flipping over. It's crazy. So on the highway, you put the suspension in full soft and comfort mode. It turns off a lot of the active sound design, closes the flaps and the exhaust, and you can just cruise along. I mean, it's amazing how soft the suspension gets considering how hardcore the car can be. It's just a really naturally balanced car, and so when you put it in, you know, full soft mode, it's just so nice. Definitely a good road tripper for sure. Although if you spend a lot of time on the highway, I'd be curious if the DSG drops the revs a little bit more than the manual. I don't know. Anyway, there you have it. Travel assist doing its thing. What happens if we don't take over? Let's just see. So I'm going to cover the wheel and see what it does to try and get my attention. I assume it's the same as the ID4, where it'll eventually beep the horn and do all the stuff. So it says take over steering. It's doing this corner great. There we go, first warning, and in the heads-up display, it's showing a picture of someone grabbing a wheel. Ooh, grabbing the brakes. You hear that? That was like an ABS grab. Oh, it just shut off. Oh, so it doesn't do its like little emergency assist ramp down thing. That's very interesting. I don't know if you guys saw that. It just gave up. And so maybe it doesn't do the whole grab the seatbelt, beep the horn, put the hazards on like the ID4 does. Interesting. We're actually developing a new ADAS test that will be coming to you soon, and we'll be running Volkswagens and tons of other cars through it, and I'll certainly be using my Golf R to run the test. So yeah, can't wait to get my car. Can't thank you enough for watching, and just so excited about this awesome, truly fantastic 8th generation Golf that thankfully we still get in the US, even if it's just the spicy ones, which is the one I would want anyway. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.